This is Ed in San Diego, California, and our special guest is in the London area. Let's welcome Lee McIntyre-Hamilton.
Hi, Ed.
Welcome to the show.
Hello from a very hot and warm London.
Yeah. How hot was it today?
Well, I don't know exactly, but apparently it's going to get up to 40 degrees C today, which is unheard of in the UK. I don't know what it's like on the West Coast, but it's temperatures we've not seen for a very, very long time.
So here in southernmost Southern California, I'm on the Mexican border in downtown San Diego. Across the street is the ocean. I'm in the Seaport Village area. It is about 68 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
Foggy and cloudy right here along the coast. However, were I to get in my car and go 10 miles east, it will be at this very moment 80 degrees.
Yeah.
All right, which is about 30 centigrade, right?
Yeah.
About. So and it will go to like 95. And that is not even 10 miles east of here.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay.
Big variation.
Right. Now, further out towards Palm Springs, which is like 120 miles east of here, that it will be 116, 118. And that's about 40.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's so hot you can't breathe.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah. So the family has some units on some houses over the years, and so we have one in Palm Desert. It's in a country club, golf club setting, and we were there last summer just about this time, checking it out. It's a beautiful place, and but it was so hot you can't go outside.
Yeah.
I mean, the steam and the heat just comes right at you.
It's the downside. We had the only time I've been in temperatures like this was a holiday we had in Egypt back in, I think it was 2012. And it was 43 degrees C outside. And literally the ground was too hot to walk on.
Right.
So I had to spend much of the time, in fact, all of the time on some days, inside an air-conditioned room. Which kind of defeats the object of being on holiday, of course.
Yeah, of course, you go in the pool and it's great for the time you're in it.
Yeah.
And you dry off quick.
Yeah.
But that's it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I guess with climate change and all, this is going to be something we have to get used to, really, I think.
So let's talk about people who are trying to take advantage and they become digital nomads.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's the big thing I think happened with work during the pandemic, and I think one of the things I wanted to do at the outset, because I think there's a lot of confusion in terminology, as there often is with these things. People use different things to describe different people. So the way I kind of see it, you've got sort of three categories. The first category is just remote workers, and I think I'd count those as people if you work in the US and your employer has a building somewhere, an office, but you decide to go and work from home somewhere else in the US, then you're a remote worker. And I think we've seen a huge amount of that during the pandemic for obvious reasons. And I think globally that's a sticky trend. It's continuing, and I think actually will continue now into the future for various reasons we can come on to. And then I think number two category is globally remote workers. So these are people who are like that category, but they decide, listen, I don't want to work in the US. I'm going to go and live and work in Bermuda, or perhaps I might come to the UK or France or wherever, but still working for the US employer. So there's that category. And then the final is the digital nomads. And I think they get a lot of press because it's the bit that it really interests people. And I think I see those people as they have no fixed country as such, but they might go and work in Spain for 6 months, then they might go to Italy, then they might go across to Australia, all the while taking their laptop and plugging in and doing work. And I think all of those areas during the pandemic seen an uptick. They've always been there or been there for a long while, but I think the pandemic really changed people's mindsets. It forced also people to do it. And I think it taught employers and people that actually technology can sustain it. So it's here to stay. And I think the thing I've been looking at mostly is around helping employers to navigate that, because it's all very well employees saying, you know, I want to live in my home country and I want to work here. I don't want to come back to the UK to the work, or the US if it's a US employer. But what does that mean from an employer perspective? So I think I've been helping employers really navigate that whole area.
So it's compliance.
It is predominantly compliance, though not solely. I mean, I think when we're looking at this, there's a whole bundle of variables. But I think from an employee perspective, it's around that drive to work perhaps in their home country, or it might be often in the younger generations, that drive to just see the world. So I think from an employer perspective, it's really understanding what's going to drive our approach to globally remote working or digital nomadism. Is it because we want to retain talent and we feel we have to, because otherwise people go elsewhere? Is it because actually we want to attract new talent, so we're taking the job to people rather than the job coming to us? Or is it something else? Do actually we want to save on overheads? You know, and that's the one thing out of this. Real estate is expensive in most big cities, and this is a way potentially of companies reducing the amount of office space that they have. So a part of it is compliance, but that first bit around really understanding what it is you're trying to achieve with allowing people to globally remote work and supporting that, and then building around that. Okay, so how do you deal with it from there on in? I think during the start of the pandemic, there was a huge sort of clamor, I think, from people to say, listen, we want to work from anywhere. And that was a huge voice. And I had lots of companies coming to me saying, right, we need to do this now. How do we deal with it? Like, can we just let people work from anywhere forever? And the answer to that is, well, you can, but there's lots of compliance associated with that. And the reason there's lots of compliance associated with that is because I think when you look at it in the big picture, countries are designed and set up primarily to have employees based in that country. As soon as you get people moving around, other countries, when it comes to compliance, are concerned with, is that person here legally? Number one. Do they trigger a corporate presence for their overseas employee in my country? Number two, why is that important? Because otherwise it means that companies could have people based in other countries all over the world, but without ever registering and paying tax anywhere else from a corporate point of view. So countries are interested in that side of it too. And then, of course, flowing from that, there's all payroll obligations and so on. So what I've seen then during the pandemic was this clamor, but then that subsided as companies realized that actually there's a lot involved in this. We can't just have somebody working permanently in France and not expect the French authorities to require something of us. So what I have seen over the last 6 to 12 months is a tip of the hat or a nod towards globally remote working, but one that's much more measured. So I'm working with a company at the moment, for example, that is allowing people to work remotely, but for 1 month a year. Why is that? Because you're much less likely to trigger compliance obligations with that kind of setup. So that's been the whole kind of minefield with globally remote work, as I'd call it. I think secondly, with the digital nomads, there's a lot of misunderstanding, I think. The reality is with tax, and I think a lot of people misunderstand this, is it's not just about residence. It's not just about the country you live in. Because if that were the case, it would be easy for everyone, right, to give up residence and just say, I'm going to kind of travel the world forever and not pay tax anywhere. That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen because countries reserve the right to tax your duties generally in the UK, in the country you're working, and a non-resident. So let's say I decided to break residence with the UK and go and work in France for 4 months and then in Germany for 4 months. Because I've broken residence with the UK, I got no exemption under the double tax treaty in those countries. Both of those countries would reserve the right to tax my duties. But here's what's happening. Digital nomads who are not connected with employers necessarily, they are, in some cases, I wouldn't say all, but are going into countries working on tourist visas. And the kind of thing is, well, how does anyone know you're plugging in a hotel, you're setting up your laptop? So they're off the radar from an immigration point of view, and they're also not paying tax in those countries too. So I think that position is trickier for tax authorities, but I think the more that digital nomads become a thing globally, I think the more that we'll see compliance crackdowns.
Let's talk about this now. I'm not a tax person at all.
Yeah.
I'm not a lawyer. I'm a high concept TV talk show host.
Sure.
All right. So, what are they paying tax on? Revenue generated in that moment, or some other criteria?
It depends on the country and the tax rules, but broadly across most countries, as a non-resident in that country, you'd be paying tax in respect of the income you earn for duties performed in that country. So
at that period of time only.
Exactly. So let me give you an example. You've got somebody who is a UK national, but they break residence with the UK and they go and work in Germany for 6 months, and then they go and work in France for 6 months. So let's say they earn $100,000 a year. If it was an equal split between those countries, Germany would want to tax 50% of their income, and France would want to tax 50% of their income. The UK wouldn't want to tax anything. Why is that? Because they're not resident in the UK, they're not performing any duties in the UK. So that's how it works broadly. It's slightly different with the self-employed. And again, it depends on which country and the rules, but generally countries will look at where somebody is trading, as a self-employed individual, and where their trading income is arising. But that does depend on the country's rules. Now, the US, of course, is a bit different. It's a bit stickier, isn't it? Because the US taxes citizens wherever they are in the world. So I think it's probably a bit harder to escape tax altogether if you're a US citizen, because it doesn't matter if you're overseas for 10 years, you still file a 1040 and you still pay tax back in the US.
So why is it so complicated? Why not just come up with, for this theoretical, hypothetical, okay, and let's call it the nomad solution. So if you're going to want to be a nomad, then you will pay a flat fee, bang. If you're in France, if you're in Canary Islands, if you're in US, Canada, it doesn't matter. You will pay a flat fee, and there's no more issues trying to catch you, try to find what's wrong. I mean, why go through all that BS? Just make a flat rate and be happy. Done.
Well, I like your creative thinking, and I think it's this kind of thing which forges solutions. But the problem, I think, with that is two things. One is, where does that flat fee go to? So if you've got somebody who's working in 10 different countries over a year, who gets the fee? Do you then have to have a system to try and allocate that between that's going to be even more burdensome than I think the individual countries tracking.
So that will be a time sensitive issue.
Yeah. How do you mean time sensitive?
How much time they are working. So let's just say the £100,000, $100,000 number.
Yeah.
All right. And they're going to work in, they're from UK, but they are going to work in Avignon for 4 months. And they're going to work in Cinque Terre for 3 months. And they're going to work in Sicily for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So just allocate that time from and then that money.
But who does that? Like, you're going to have a body which then administers that between the countries, and then you're going to get people saying, well, am I paying a full flat fee to each country, or can I apportion it because I only spent a month there, somebody else down the road spent 3 months? And then I think the other challenge you've got is you're then immediately changing the tax system from a progressive one, whereby if you're on $1 million, for example, then you're going to be paying just a flat fee, the same as somebody who's earning $50 in a territory, working in a cafe or picking strawberries or whatever. So I like the thinking, and we do have to do something. I think that the problem we have, Ed, is that the global tax system was built in the days when people, took a boat from one country to another. It took 7 weeks and you had to log in there and so on. It's just not built for the virtual world, and it's built around physically where you are. But I think
so. Let's talk about that for a second. So big companies, whether it's in the city or in La Défense on Wall Street, they have all these huge buildings because that's what they're supposed to be doing. Not only do they there's real estate development and there's a lot of money involved, but there's a lot of tax revenue from all that, and it looks great in the skyline pictures. So but now a lot of that looks like it's going to need to be repositioned as housing or manufacturing. So the corporations have all this real estate that's going almost for 2 years vacant or not being used. And so they're paying. So now this is a legal question, but it's also tax. And so if you want to just pass on it, it's okay. But isn't that the situation caused by the pandemic? Is that a force majeure? In other words, it's like, whoa, we didn't plan on this, but all of a sudden our business crashed, like my conference business crashed as a result of the pandemic. And so I try to learn how to do this. So a company that has 1 million square feet of office space, and not only in New York, but let's just say in 13 other cities, they want to get rid of that real estate to some extent. And so that means breaking all those leases, or if not, then getting some kind of a tax abatement while they're refitting or figuring out how to refit into residential or manufacturing space. And so do you see that at all in the city and, in London? Companies have been sitting there with empty chairs.
Yeah, I mean, as you rightly pointed out, I'm not a lawyer, and it's part of that I think would be around what contracts you have on your property. I did see some of this during the pandemic, with regards to insurance companies, for example, before we even get to the question of sale or not. And it was an interesting point because there was a point when our government was saying you can work from home if you want. We strongly recommend it. And of course, everyone went to work from home. Now, a lot of the insurance companies were saying, well, we're not going to pay out for lost time, rental income and rental payments and so on, because actually it's not a declared force majeure. It's not a declared incident. So it kind of, I think, prompted the government to declare that people now mandatorily had to work from home. Now, again, it's out of my area, but my understanding is a lot of insurance companies were then at least supporting the short-term costs. I think longer term, it's going to depend on people's agreements that they have with their leaseholders. For me, I think, what I see generally is, yes, I mean, footfall in the city is down, City of London, and also occupancy of spaces. And I know that many businesses are downsizing, not altogether, but if you had 10 offices, cutting it down to 7. If you had 2, maybe you just have 1, etc. But it does depend what kind of business you've got. There are some businesses which necessitate people being together in a room. I mean, less these days, but it's still out there. But if you're a business which can operate virtually, I dare say that even those companies which don't particularly like people work from home, I dare say that even those are looking now at, do we need all this overhead and real estate?
So tell me about Keystone Law. of which you're a
Mm,
part, and I
yeah, yeah.
understand the firm has won all kinds of accolades this past year, law firm of the year, or things like that.
Yeah, I mean, Keystone's been around over 20 years now, and it is a disruptor in the legal space, which is what appealed to me really. It did and trialed and successfully implemented remote working long before even pandemic and COVID were known as names. And the idea behind it, I think, is around having a flat hierarchy so that you allow people, professionals, to forge their own career and business and what they work on and don't, but bring professionals together under one umbrella when we need to cross work on things. So, when I joined, I was, thinking, how's this going to work? But it works really well because actually you get people who are motivated, not because they have to work with X or on B with Y, etc., but you work with clients and you can bring in who you want from the firm to work on a particular project. So I'm working on something at the moment where I'm providing the tax input. I work with my immigration colleague, one of my immigration colleagues, and I work with an employment lawyer. On future projects, I may work with a completely separate team just because they happen to have the right skill set or whatever for that client. So for me, it's worked really well. And I suppose temperamentally as well, I am somebody who's always striven for freedom, and having been master of my own destiny and so on. And we all have to accept compromise in the world, that's for sure. But for me, the model works really well from that point of view.
So how do you allocate billable hours?
How do you mean?
Well, your lawyers, they're going to be, they need to get paid. And so
Yeah, sure.
how much time and who sets the rates, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so billable hours are charged in exactly the same way as any other professional services firm. But your point there, who sets the rates? I set my rates. So that's great, in terms of the markets I work with, because one of the things, or one of the downsides of having a set rate for everything, is that some work, frankly, is more complex, more risky. Some isn't. Some things are more demanding. Some aren't. And also, it allows me to reflect my client base. I work with some charities, some international charities. I don't want to charge them the full rate. I know what pressure they're under from a budgetary point of view, and it feels right to charge a lower rate. So that flexibility, without having to agree it with anyone, because it's just me who's setting that rate, is great.
So when you charge a lower rate from an established rate, and you're going to charge them lower because of it's a cause, and so do you get a tax write-off?
No, not at all. I mean, it's just all you're doing there with that is just saying, okay, economically, for this hour of my time, if we're going to work together, this is what you'll get billed.
I got it. Okay, that's cool. That's very cool. So let's shift gears a little bit, if it's okay with you.
Sure.
And talk about, are people going to the beach during this hot weather? Or I suppose they dare not go swimming in the Thames, but and where do they go? Do they go to Land's End, or they go to Brighton?
Well, I suppose it depends which part of the country you're in. I think you're absolutely right, spot on, Ed. I think here in London, I think probably Brighton would be the most popular call. That said, the government's advising everyone to stay indoors today, so probably not today. Where I come from in the northeast of England has, I would say, the most beautiful coastline in the country, up in Tynemouth and North Shields. And
I've never been up there.
Yeah, it's wonderful because it's not got the clutter, can I call it that, of London, as much as I love London. It's got lots of natural beauty and it's it hasn't been overdeveloped. But I spent many happy hours as a child down on the beaches, and I was reflecting the other day actually that even if the temperature was like 18 or 19 degrees, we'd be down the beach because that was warm weather for us back then. Not now. I think I was speaking to my mum and dad, and it is a lot hotter up there today, up in the 30s.
Unusual, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Boy, it's amazing. Okay, let's talk about politics a little bit.
Oh yeah.
I'm not looking for solutions, but just chatter. So Brexit,
Mm.
is from here in Southern California, and from my take, it looks like the whole idea is a disaster.
Yeah, well, I can understand that point of view. And, I was one of those people who voted to remain in the EU.
If I were
and
there, I would have done that too.
yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
a mixed bag, Ed. I I did feel on the fence on Brexit. I think economically, um, I think there are far too many other priorities in the world to sort right now, and just detaching yourself from your best trading partners it is counterintuitive and doesn't seem with like the right course of action. The one bit that I was persuaded, although it didn't persuade me enough to vote for Brexit, but I worry about the decline in democracy, right? Where our politicians, the decisions, the big issues get further and further remote from us. And so the one positive Brexit is that we've brought a lot of control back into our parliament now, and we can make laws going forward, which don't require then the agreement of all the other EU countries. Now, it's never as simple as that, and it's never as simple as that because we're bound still by lots of treaties and also conventions, and there are trading partners, even though we've got a different agreement now, and so we've not got complete free reign. But my hope is that over the next 10 or 20 years, we will make big hay of that independence from the EU, such that we don't have to be bound by, for example, particular quotas on how much we sell of something. We don't have to be bound by particular parameters around tax rates and so on. So I think there's lots of scope. I think short term, I agree with you. Longer term, I'm hoping that it's going to offer something a bit more positive.
So are people from Europe, mainland Europe, are they able to come and work in London?
Yeah, they are. I mean, EU nationals can still come and work on a temporary basis in the UK, like business visitors, without, any, additional paperwork and so on. For people who want to come to the UK longer term, for example, if you're on secondment or you just want to come and live in the UK, then you're going to have to go through a visa and immigration process now, like other people from other parts of the world. But it's still there, and I think the important thing is, for me anyway, although it's been a bit of a dimmed message over the last year, is that there's still huge opportunities in the UK across loads of sectors. We are crying out, I think, perhaps like many other countries in the world, for talent. And I think the UK is trying to make it easier generally for people to come, skilled people to come and work in the UK.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? So who do you think will be the next prime minister?
I knew you were going to ask that one.
Now, will it be conservative, or will they find somebody from the past, Tony Blair or somebody, to be a caretaker?
Well, the way our system works, it definitely will be somebody from the Conservative Party, and it'll be one of the 5 candidates who are now kind of, pitching for that job. Soon to be 2 candidates, because they're going to kind of whittle it down. So I don't really know at the moment. It's the thing is, much like any political system, we're the new leader, because we're, let's say, mid-term. It's not a general election. The Parliament chooses the person, or the 2 people who go forward then to the Conservative membership base. So if you're not a Conservative registered member, then you don't get a say in it. So it's going to be hard to say really who ends up picking up that baton.
So I'm a Yank, and far flung away from the Northeast US, which is very London centric. But I'm from Boston originally, which is really London centric.
Yeah.
And so I asked the following question, not as being a wise guy, but just because. So what does Conservative Party mean in London? It's right wing? It doesn't appear that way to me. But because I look at ft.com daily, frankly, and so I'm following stuff. So what is, I mean, the Conservative Party used to be the Lords, right? The upper crust and, that kind of thing, but it's not that way anymore.
No, I mean, I think in fairness, much like in many other countries, I think the political parties have come closer and closer together over the years. So, I mean, Conservative is meant to be the party, pretty much like your Republicans, really, who want a low tax, small state, hard on crime. So all those kind of things. But, if you speak to the Labour Party, which is, I guess, Democrat, broadly speaking, then you'll also find that similar mix of policies. So yeah, it's less easy to differentiate between the two parties these days. But I think the big debate going on now is whether, and actually it's a fight within the Conservative Party about whether we should lower taxes right now. And the fight is about, should you lower taxes when you've got inflation going through the roof? Because lowering taxes means more money in the economy, people are spending more, and it further accentuates the inflation problem. So that's the big debate. Some candidates are saying lower taxes, some are saying higher taxes.
So, just a couple of guys talking, but it seems to me that, and I am not a tax expert at all, but it just seems to me that having a value-added, a sales tax, not on food or medicine, but on everything else, the rich are going to keep spending wherever they want and however they want. And if there's a flat tax that everybody has to pay, unless they're on some kind of welfare. But when you go to the store, you go to buy a car, you go to buy furniture, but not food or medicine. But everything else that's purchased, the rich are going to pay higher tax. I mean, much more money, not a different rate, but just the percentage of tax flow is going to be from people who are making money.
Sure.
And it's not going to hurt the poor people because there'll probably be some kind of floor where it doesn't count. So why not just do away with income tax and maybe a small amount of flat rate, but I believe that's the answer, because people are going to either spend or they're not going to spend, and not food or medicine, but everything else. Let the governments share that windfall and just reduce the tax. Like, for instance, here in the U.S., particularly in California, our petrol, our gas right now, I mean, yesterday, $6.50 a gallon.
Right.
All right. And, in Washington, they're saying the U.S. average is $4.60. That's BS. We haven't seen that in 2 years out here, So, I mean, who's paying that? So it costs a lot of money to put gas in your car. But the highways are still full. The freeways here, San Diego freeway is clogged at rush hour. Still, the news is that people are leaving California. They're still on the freeway, let me tell you. So, but from a tax specialist point of view, is the value added, that 20%, some kind of tax that you guys have, is that a solution or is it just a pain?
I mean, it's there. I'm not sure whether it's a pain or not. It raises revenue for the exchequer, and I don't think for that reason they'll ever get rid of it now. I think the issue is just the level of revenue generated from that is not sufficient to sustain, I guess, the state that we've created. It's as simple as that. But I do think there is something in looking at other sources of revenue. So my personal view currently is that the burden of tax is too heavily on employers and also employees, particularly at the lower end, because those are the people who are going to keep consuming and keep the economy going and ticking over whilst we have this downturn, and putting more money into those people's pockets to pay higher energy bills is not necessarily going to be inflationary, because you're just the energy bills.
No, it's going to be survival.
Exactly. So I was really interested a couple of months ago when a group of billionaires, I think it was 100, formed a group and said, we want to pay more tax. And I think somebody'd worked out that, the amount of tax you could raise in 1 year from this small group of people would more than cover the entire tax rise on all employees in the UK. So, irrespective of the maths, I think there are groups of people who actually perhaps can pay a little bit more in this current climate. Now, I'm not for anti-competition where we're saying, just because somebody's been successful, then let's take everything back off them. I don't think that's right either. And I think you just end up with people flying to another country. But I do think, especially where people are volunteering to pay additional tax, I think given where we're at in the world right now, the pandemic, the crisis in oil and gas and so on, I think we should listen to those calls and explore other areas.
So here in the US, for instance, California has a state tax on every gallon of gas, but the US has gas tax also. And so there's a lot of talk about why don't they reduce those taxes now, have a tax holiday while these prices are sky high until there's more of a balance coming back. And so the governments are not rushing to do anything about that, because in reality, this is a windfall for the governments. And after spending all this money on COVID and all these other things, they're not stupid. Why should we not take in that money? It's coming.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's a bit like the excise and taxes we have on cigarettes. The government on one hand would say don't smoke, but on the other hand, it raises billions from people smoking. And I think the energy thing is the same thing. Now in the UK, we did what they did do is they're looking at a windfall tax on energy providers as a way of not just taxing people who receive energy and have to spend and so on, don't have a choice, but actually the companies themselves, on the basis that, you're enjoying a bonus right now, a big bounty, and therefore, it's right that we take a bit of that. Now, there are downsides to that too, but I think in the current climate, it feels right.
So what if, this is just what if, and we can bring this to a close here because I know you're busy. Instead of a windfall tax like that, why not earmark where that money is going to go? I mean, specifically, and no BS, that's really going to happen. Like, for instance, they're going to solve some kind of a social issue, homeless, whatever. And so, and by doing that, let's just say it's the oil companies or just anybody who's got a great cash flow. They'll get a tax write-off. Not only will the government not screw around with that money, but they're going to solve a social issue and take care of the greater good. And you guys who have all that money, who are going to tax, you're going to get a claim and a write-off that no questions asked. So just do it.
I love those kind of ideas because actually it means that things that are not getting attention by the government can get attention. So we did have this in the UK, we have got it currently, where we've got a healthcare levy, which has been imposed from next year, which has specifically been earmarked for like social and health care when people get older, social care and support, because that's been neglected for decades in the UK. When people go into old people's homes, have they got the right support? Are people looking after them in their older years? Is there the right community support, and so on and so forth? And so that's been earmarked for that. My only thing with that is that they're taxing employees to pay for that now and employers at a time when actually everyone's struggling and employers are struggling as well. So, but I think the idea of using a windfall or even a continuous tax, I agree that that is earmarked for a specific thing that doesn't, is under appreciated or underdeveloped when it comes to government spending is not a bad idea. I guess like anything like this, you get the arguments, that industry might say, why are we paying? Why us? Because maybe next year it will be the financial services who are having a bounty. So do we have to switch? Who pays? So there are always, of course, complexities with these things. But in principle, I do like that idea.
Well, thank you for sharing the space here. So let me ask you as we close here. We're both involved on the periphery, and me on the periphery, you're right in the heart of it with tax and legal.
Yeah.
Is the corporate relocation business going to survive?
And by that you mean in its broader sense, people.
Are companies still going to move people around and pay for all this?
I think it's a good question. My own personal view is I think there will be a downsizing of it.
There's too much duplication, right?
There is. I think, of course, the pandemic had an immediate shock when it stopped, really, in many countries. Now, I think it's going to come back. I just don't think you can ever quite replace physically being somewhere, especially if you're leading a department or you are, you need to be culturally embedded in that country. I think there's nothing like face-to-face. But I think there will be a decline, and I think we'll see more globally remote working, less secondments, less business visits. Because the other bit of this, of course, is cost. It costs a fortune. And two is the climate. So a lot of companies now under pressure to be complying with green credentials and to be seen to be doing the right thing. And I think having people flying from country to country on a continuous basis is not really consistent with that. So I think it will decline over the coming decades, but it will still be there.
Well, what I have found in the last 31 months, since I started this TV talk show idea rather than live meetings, is that I'm able to bring people together on Zoom TV from across time and space, from across silos, from across industry, from across borders and cultures at no cost to anyone. And so that's the upside, because people need to reskill and upskill so that they can compete with me in being a TV talk show host. Because if you do it right and you welcome people and you're not standoffish or you're not too stiff and formal, you can relate just as well as you can in person.
Definitely.
No question.
I think you're absolutely right. And, I've heard people say, oh, but you can't be creative over Zoom, and it's not, but you can. It's just you've not learned to do it. Right. Exactly. It's just, it might feel a bit different. It might pose other challenges, but it can be done. And I always give the example way before any of Zoom and all the rest of it was Elton John and his songwriter Bernie Taupin. Now they lived hundreds of miles apart, and they used to write to each other and send things through the post. Now, of course, things are much more efficient, but hey, they managed to do Rocket Man that way, and all of Elton John's great hits. And I think, well, it worked for them, and I think the same thing. You can make it work. It requires different skills and adapting, but it can be done. And as you said, it's much more cost effective.
Yeah, thank you, Lee, for being on Global TV Talk Show. Please come back, and let's find some other way to have a conversation.
Absolutely, yeah, good, and have a wonderful day. All the best.
Good night. All right, this is Ed in San Diego signing off, and Lee McIntyre-Hamilton where in London are you?
Greenwich, southeast London.
Oh, and what time is it there?
It is. It's 5 to 5 in the evening.
Greenwich time.
Greenwich, of course, where time started.
Okay,
We even
ciao.
have the censored thing that where time began, as it calls.
Thank you.